Who are you? I said, who are you?
They're the Rewinders podcast, Duke.
The man sent him in here. Something's going down. We need him.
The Rewinders podcast.
I've heard of you. I heard you were dead.
Hello, I'm Joe.
I'm Ken.
I'm Snake Plissken.
I'm Dan.
And we are the Rewinders podcast, rewinding and rebooting movies to see if they hold up. And this time, we crashed into Escape from New York. So, who has history with this movie? Because I don't.
Neither do I.
The only history I've had is everybody knowing about it and everybody loving it and me wondering, what's that movie about? I finally watched it for the first time like 5 years ago, maybe.
This past week was the first time that I'd ever watched this movie, and the people that I know are always talking this movie up, so I was like, I went in expecting this to be, like, good.
Yeah. I made the mistake of watching, I didn't think it made any canonical difference, so I stupidly watched Escape from LA first, and holy shit, did I make a mistake? But, yeah.
Personally, I used to watch a lot of Kurt Russell movies as a child because he was in Disney a lot. And my mom would occasionally be like, ooh, he was good in Escape from New York. I was like, that's a weird thing to say. You should watch it, when you're older. Wait till you're grown up, then you can watch it. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then I went back as an adult and was like, she said I should watch this movie. I was like, and Escape from LA was the one I accidentally picked. And I thought I remember enjoying that. And then I did go back and watch this one for a podcast again. And it was a movie. It was something I watched.
I want my hour... Wait, hang on. I have a note. Exactly how much time I wasted watching this movie.
Dan, this is the thing you're supposed to hold for the end of the podcast.
No, I have nothing good to say about this movie.
You don't start the podcast with this. So does anyone have a history with John Carpenter movies in general?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
I love John Carpenter movies.
That was another reason why I was expecting this to be better than it was. John Carpenter should stick to doing horror films.
Horror films.
See, now I'm not exactly on board with that statement because Big Trouble in Little China is not a horror movie.
Agreed.
I've never seen it, so I'd have to watch that.
But is wonderful.
Agreed. And They Live is more of a sci-fi horror, if
Correct.
anything. It kind of feels more like Escape from New York, just with a sci-fi element. But yeah, I wouldn't agree that he needs to stick to horror, just...
No, to be fair, in this movie, he did try to bring in a horror element with a zombie-esque run through the city and people
Yes,
getting
the
eaten.
cannibals in the middle. That was pretty cool. So, yeah, before we get too carried away,
Things we liked?
I guess who's got a pitch?
Pitch.
Hey, I'll do it.
All right.
Go for it.
good.
Because I'd tear this movie apart.
Gentlemen,
Yes.
just imagine if hippies stole the president and crashed him into New York.
Oh my god.
God damn hippies.
Now imagine the hippies doing this when, let's just say, New York is not a free and open city. It's like a walled prison. And no one goes
Wait.
out of this walled prison.
All of New York? Because that's kind of a big place.
Big moneymaker.
And the Hudson.
That's
and
a lot
the
of money.
Hudson River.
Who built this wall?
Well,
I think maybe we should just stick to, like, maybe the island of Manhattan.
okay. Well, when I say New York, I mean New York City, and not just... You got me. All right. Manhattan. Fine. It's an island. It works. And this is, like, not just common day. It's kind of like this 1997 world where crime has run amok. Because we all know in our today 1980s world, crime is just taking off, and this is where we're eventually headed.
It's those damn kids worshiping Satan.
Who knows? There might be Hunger Games coming up afterwards too. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
What's a Hunger Game?
I'm just talking out my butt right now. I don't know.
Okay.
So the only way to get the president out, because the president can never die, ever, historically speaking, all presidents are still alive. We need to get him out of this Manhattan prison. So we send in the one criminal fighter hero that everyone knows, but no one believes is still alive, to go get the president out.
Jackie Chan.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Who is Jackie Chan at this point? I don't know if Jackie Chan was that popular in 1980.
Charles Bronson.
But maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Maybe Schwarzenegger.
I hear click, 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 click.
I'm Googling. Give me a minute.
It's 1981. What's a Google?
It's a computer.
Ah.
It's a really, really big computer.
You're a computer. Well, hurry up with those
He
punch
did the
cards.
big brawl in 1980.
Yeah, and did any of us see or hear of that before now?
Probably not. Battle Creek Brawl, maybe?
No. Anyway, so we send in this criminal that everyone knows of, that everyone respects, but then no one believes is alive, and he gets the president out through all these crazy situations on a prison island. Huh? Huh?
I mean,
Huh?
that sounds plausible. Like, it could be a good movie.
I'll tell you what, I'll get my buddy Lee Van Cleef to be in this movie. Huh? Everybody loves Lee Van Cleef.
Sure, yeah.
He's big enough now.
Yeah,
right?
he had a pretty good uprising in the 70s.
He's got a big career under his belt.
Yep.
Anyway,
That's
there we go.
that's a pretty good pitch.
That's good. It was good.
Yeah.
It's a good pitch. Too bad the movie wasn't good.
I mean,
Now let's take this pitch and compare it to the trailer that we watched.
The trailer makes the movie seem so much edgier than it actually is.
but also in the same way that 80s dictation over the trailers, it just really, I don't know, trailers seem to be taken away when you get the voiceover like that. I seem to be remembering it's a lot cooler, but the inner world is it's corny these days, I think.
It's memeable these days.
Yeah.
I want to see more movies do in a world.
Yeah, there's kind of a shortage of that nowadays.
Because then everyone would be like, oh, he's doing it. He's
But you'd
doing
only
it.
be able to do it for like sarcastic reasons.
In a world where only one man can wear pants.
See,
Like every third sentence has to start with, in a world. Then by the time you're done with that one trailer, everyone would be like, all right, cool. That was fun. We're done with
we're
that
good.
statement
Let's try
again."
the new thing.
Explosions. I thought that the trailer did a damn good job of not giving away the plot.
That
Yes.
that was the one thing that I did make a note of.
Yeah, it really did a good job of setting up the tone, the theming, everything. Just nothing crazy given away. I thought it was great. I honestly thought it was a great trailer.
In fact, had they started off the movie with this is the setup, because the trailer was a minute and a half. They took 30 seconds to tell you that Manhattan was on lockdown, yada yada, and they took about what felt like 15 minutes to set that up during the movie. So if they could just cut out that 15 minutes and give us the setup there, if you're going to give us exposition as well as if you're going to give it exposition, you might as well exposition us to the point where we don't have to watch a lot of people walking around. They did a lot of long opening shots. I think that's the problem. Like when they first introduced Snake, he's jumping off a bus and walking in. They've showed him walking all the way from the bus to the entrance of the police station or whatever that was. And it was a long walk.
They're establishing he's cool.
Yeah. You gotta get that walk. You gotta get that Kurt Russell saunter.
They took way too long. Like, you can establish that much quicker than walking through the entirety of a military base.
I was gonna ask you, Dan, how'd you enjoy that opening titles?
Here's my note for that. Quote, "Holy shit, what is this opening credits bullshit? I stand corrected. This is worse than Black Hole."
Oh, I'm so excited to get your take on it.
Nothing quite like John Carpenter having his name 3 times in 2.5 minutes display on a black screen. Now, I will say, I got really bored on the first watch through of this movie. It was pretty awful. Started making riff jokes about it. But then on the second view through, it wasn't nearly as awful as I had remembered. I picked up on a whole bunch of other things because I was trying to figure out what the hell they're doing with that intro sequence. And I kind of had it figured out then, and I was much more engaged in the movie, which made it less boring. But still, about halfway through, I was still struggling to try to even take notes, which was what the second viewing was for.
I don't know how to put it into words. I feel like the movie shot very well. I feel like the cinematography is very well done in this movie. I just feel like it's definitely a piece of its time. It's got that Running Man-esque feel to it. It's kind of, it's tough to sit through now. Maybe if I had seen this for the first time back in like the 90s, when everybody else was talking about it in my friends group, then maybe, but I don't know. I love the way the film is shot. It's just, it doesn't flow very well.
So, since we're taking the lead of Dan and being negative Nancy's here.
I mean, I have 2 notes for favorite moments.
Yeah.
The first one's a plot hole,
What? There's no plot holes.
and the second one is Ernest Borgnine.
Ernest Borgnine is amazing.
Yeah, he really brought the whole movie together. During the slumps, you could always count on Ernest Borgnine just randomly showing up and stopping in a convenient spot with his taxi.
All right, do we have any favorite things or positives?
Oh, absolutely.
I have 2. So, Ken, go ahead.
Okay, so I really like, and this is probably because I did some reading up, trying to figure out if there was anything cool in this movie.
What?
So, first thing I noticed on the second walkthrough is how much I love the font of the signs in the police station.
Yes, it's got that cool retro-futurism look to it. Like that's what they just assumed future text would look like.
And then Snake Plissken, while he's talking in the police station originally, I'm right where the with what's his name again? Van Trapp.
Van Cleef.
Van Cleef.
Van Cleef.
Van Cleef.
Van Cleef's like, I'm ready to kick your ass out of the world.
Von Traps are a different movie.
Oh yeah, I know. Sound of Music. Where Van Cleef says, "I'm about to kick your ass out of this world," which is an amazing line, as well as Snake saying, "Get a new president." And then after he gets this whole tough man persona going on, and he sits down in the bright office room after he gets his finally puts his jacket back on. He sits down and they tell him to take off his jacket and he says, "I don't like needles." I was like, that's
Yeah.
really? So it was some interesting takes there, but also I shouldn't have looked at my notes because I had something else in my head that I really liked. I did like the him bringing in the thing I said earlier with the zombie-esque mode.
Yeah.
Ernest Borgnine in his cab, having fun.
Yeah, no, I love that whole sequence. Like, just when the lady gets pulled through the floor, it's like, oh shit, it's on. And just him stumbling, trying to get away from everyone.
But then nothing goes with that. I feel the problem here that I have with this movie is that it doesn't pick a direction and go. It just kind of does this like flailing circle to get to the end of the plot.
Yeah, I could see that. And
Had they stuck with the like, okay, the city is now infested with a bunch of ravenous human beings who like to eat other human beings. Cool, let's stick with that.
Okay, here's the deal. So we have that subset of people. I sat there through the first half of the movie being like, where do people get food from? This thing's been going on for like 10 years. Somehow they're still getting gas out of a oil derrick in the Brain's house. I'm willing to look past that. Maybe he's hit a gas line and is able to suction some out.
How quickly were they able to put up the walls? Because like
those were some huge walls.
There's a lot of stuff left in big walls, and there's a lot of stuff left in Manhattan. Did they really just like power through building these 40 to 50 foot walls?
They had to have.
yeah, you can't just throw a bunch of criminals into an unfinished prison.
But that would take years to complete. It's a little bit insane. I wasn't even thinking about that, just the food. So then, so you got John Carpenter. He does his horror thing with the people. And then Ernest Borgnine comes in and says, yeah, they'll strip a body in 10 seconds flat. So you're like, oh, okay, so some of the population has reduced themselves to cannibalism, which the cannibals don't eat each other because zombie rules.
Yeah.
But then they're also sectioned off to their own area where they know that like the people with weapons aren't going to be. This is going to be where the new people randomly wander into town. Yeah, there's zombies.
And the zombies only come out at night.
Well, we don't know that. This movie took place over 12 hours, but he fell asleep 24 hours, but he fell asleep during the day. So the movie was completely at night. He fell asleep, he was knocked out. Anyway, I forgot the other things I like. I'll probably remember them and bring them up later. Go ahead, Rothy.
I don't know. One of my favorite parts, hands down, is the paper wall.
Oh, yes. So good.
Yeah.
As he's getting away from the zombies, just, a dramatic shot, powering through gunshots, making that man-sized hole in the wall, and then he just jumps through essentially what's just paper.
Oh, foam. You could see it. It's just, when he jumps out the other side, it was clearly foam.
And again, I really feel like that's just because that's what they had to work with in 1981. But
it was
it's
cheap,
so
it's
funny.
easy to work with, and you don't have to worry about hurting your people.
Exactly. It did its job, but it's funny to watch now and just cackle at.
Yeah.
Also, I have this at the top of my list because this is going to stand out for every John Carpenter film for me. I love the music.
Yeah, no complaints for the music.
John Carpenter
No
makes his own
complaints there.
music. Yeah, I mean, he makes his own music. He does his own scores for his movies. Every time you watch a John Carpenter movie, you can tell he's just having fun doing the music for the scenes and doing the music for the movies, and it's just another one that I really enjoy. The opening titles might be boring and bland, and nothing might not be going on, but I like the song. And then same thing with the rest of the music throughout the whole movie. I like the music that he did for it. It's good.
Yeah, no real complaints on the music for me. It's a bit of that grungy industrial type trash can banging music, but it fits the theme well.
I like that even though there's not many guns in this movie, they all have scopes.
Unnecessary
Yes.
scopes.
So
Necessary.
the main
They don't ever use them.
The Snake's weapon is an Uzi. Of course, the 80s go-to gun, but it has a huge silencer on it and a huge hunting scope. And I'm just like, yes, thank you, movie. This is not productive at all for a Uzi.
damn, it looks
but
good.
Thank you. I love this.
I love how that gun changes volume based on convenience. So when he's shooting dead people, it stays quiet. Not the dead people. They're not zombies. They're just the hungry people.
Oh, sure.
It's nice and quiet. And then when the Duke picks it up later and he's shooting it at the old president, all of a sudden it's super loud and you can hear it from blocks away.
That's because he's the Duke. He's probably squeezing that trigger harder than Snake.
That's not how gun science works.
Hey. Are you arguing against an Uzi with a scope?
Yeah, I am.
Or a revolver shooting at least 7 shots before this scene cuts, so you don't know whether or not they have a chance to reload it.
They never reloaded the
Yeah.
movie. They never reload that gun on
I caught
camera.
that. Especially when she's on the bridge later on and firing at the Duke. And
I
it's
think I
7
counted
shots. I was just
7
like,
in that scene.
It was 7 because I expected it to stop at 6 or 5, but when it hit 7, I'm like, wait, and then it was over before I had a chance to think about it.
It's a revolver, guys.
Yes.
It's a revolver. I have notes about the guns sounding not proper.
Dan, yes.
I remember the other thing I liked, and it was because I looked it up on the internet. When he's flying the glider into town, and you look at the green wireframe of going into the city, that's a really cool effect. Do you guys know how he did that?
No, I was actually thinking about that. I thought maybe early CGI, but being 1981, no way.
That would have been super early.
Yeah, so like fluorescent paint outlines of buildings of some sort? I have no idea.
Yeah, close. They had a model of New York built, and then they put reflective tape on the building, and then did a UV light source to make the tape glow. And
That's
everything
pretty
else
damn
was
Okay,
cool.
dark.
that warms the
Nice.
cockles of my cold movie heart. I hate this movie
Good.
a little bit less now because of this tidbit of information.
See, that should really tell you why you maybe don't like a lot of the stuff. That's what they had to do for the special effect of that specifically. That's how old this movie is.
John Carpenter wanted to do CGI, but it was too expensive. So they came up with that idea, and I think it looks really cool, especially when you look at it knowing that. You're like, oh shoot, that is actually a really good wireframe of a town. It still seems a little silly to have a wireframe, but it's cool. It looks futuristic kind of back in the day.
Yeah, no, I was honestly thinking it might have been early CGI, but then I realized that it was too early. So I didn't think about how they did it, but it was in my mind while I was watching it, just thinking, wow, this looks really good.
Yeah.
So I just dismissed it and didn't think anything further, but that's cool to know.
Now, there were some confusing things when you're looking at the movie, like when the helicopter, right in the beginning, when the helicopter is flying over the Green River, it looks, something is definitely not right there.
It's the matte painting in the background.
Okay.
It's flat.
Yeah. And then they put the helicopter and the river over the top of that. It was like, is that two separate? I don't know.
I will say, though, I did enjoy not having any seam shakes. Thinking back to Short Circuit, so like them getting off the bus going into the building during the thunderstorm, where they obviously painted a thunderstorm in the background, or they had the matte painting of the building, whichever they did. The sync seam between those two, I mean, it just shook like freaking crazy. You could obviously tell that it wasn't the same place, and that both pieces that they had just did not mesh well together. I never really got that from this movie. With everything being practical, and with everything being matte paintings and physical sets, there's some that stand out as flat, yes, but at least the composition between the two never made it look like there was a noticeable waving line. So I appreciate them putting the
Things
hell
you
out
can
of the work
hide
on
when
that.
you make a movie set at nighttime.
Jurassic Park.
Oh, yeah. Shot at night for 4 months. People working on the movie never saw daylight for 4 months.
Oof.
Wow.
But as to those screen shakes, like around the helicopter, I noticed some black lines, like old school. I'm not going to say bad green screen, but the old school green screen, where you could tell it was like superimposed over that. Also, when the glider's falling off of the World Trade Center, it was also kind of like black lines around the outside, or maybe it was just the shading was slightly different than what it was in front of.
Yep.
I didn't catch that.
Those are the two big ones that stuck out to me. As just kind of awkward.
Gotcha.
Other than that, it was a pretty good looking movie, nice and grungy, like you'd expect from a bunch of people stuck in Manhattan.
Yeah.
I like Duke's vehicle because of the chandeliers and the hydraulics. And just the fact that it had a huge bass as it strolled through town and not caring. I was just like, yeah.
Yep.
That is actually pretty futuristic. I could 100% see somebody driving something like that around these days.
I like the imagination that went into having the chandeliers on the front of the car. That looked pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's just a fun design.
There was a lot of
yeah.
fun things in this movie, but
One of those fun things is everyone saying, "I heard you were dead."
Yes.
That
yes,
has to be
I love
my
that quote being
favorite
thrown
part.
constantly.
How has everyone heard of Snake Plissken in this world? Is it because he tried to
He robbed a bank, man. He
Was it-
robbed a bank.
Was it just the bank? I thought it was Federal Reserve, but I wrote that down like 5 minutes after it was said.
I think that's what it was, yeah.
It sounds like he did something like in a war that helped turn the tides against Russia or something like that.
In Leningrad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he had something on the
yeah.
national stage he did that everyone keeps, or at least Lee Van Cleef was referencing. He did a lot
Yeah,
of things.
every time he gave him something like, you'll be flying in the glider. They had a name for the glider.
oh yeah, I forget what it was called.
Just like in Leningrad.
Wasn't it something like jet glider, like two terms that just really don't go together?
Rocket glider or something.
Yeah, something weird like that, because it's supposed to be this silent gliding plane with no propulsion, and yet, yeah, I don't know, whatever.
Yet he's flying through relatively short buildings and then still has enough inertia to get all the way up to the top of the World Trade Center.
Yes, along with that horrible whooshing sound.
It reminded me of, and that's probably because I've been playing too much Animal Crossing. The
balloons!
Yep.
Yes, absolutely, I could totally see that.
So, since we're on the conversation point of video games, is Snake Plissken the inspiration
Snake?
for Solid Snake?
Yes.
I thought it was.
Yes, indeed.
Yep.
Yeah, the guy who came up with Metal Gear Solid said he's inspired by Snake Plissken, and that launched an almost lawsuit that he had to address.
Yeah,
Yep. Kojima.
Kojima's a huge film buff. He has seen a lot and loves a lot, so he takes a lot of inspiration from movies, and that is absolutely the inspiration for Solid Snake.
Makes you wonder where the if there were any inspirations for Death Stranding, where they came
I
from.
don't know.
He may have stopped the direct rip-off of characters after this just because it's
It's not financially good for
it's
you.
high stakes, especially these days. Back in 1981, maybe not, but
IPs didn't matter back in 1981.
What? I like that on this island of prisoners that a homegrown drag show is popular and people go to see it. I was entertained by
Oh,
that.
especially Ernest. He was really entertained. He wanted to see that show so bad.
I was curious if that was actually a real show or if it was something they came up with down there. Either way, I'm happy they have something to entertain themselves
Oh, yeah.
with. And I was thinking back after that, I was like, there's not a lot of women in this here prison, but then there's like, yeah, there's the one who's eaten, there's, what's her name, the main squeeze?
Maggie.
Maggie, that's her name. It's like, yeah, there's still, yeah, nope, it's mostly a bunch of dudes. Oh, and then there was the possible dead one underneath. And that part confused and made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, it should have made you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's a good way to show you don't want to be in this place. People don't joke around.
I guess. Well, do we have any more good things that we want to talk about? Or should we move on to the... you know, the things that make us go... well...
Yeah.
Okay. Dan, do you want to lead off? You're good at this part.
Okay. The biggest thing that got me was right at the beginning. Manhattan is surprisingly calm for there being a jet plane crash in it.
I see what you're saying.
Oh.
I
see
mean,
what you're
in
saying.
their
Flying a
defense,
plane into a
9/11
building, huh?
hadn't happened yet.
Yeah, it was a long way off.
Yeah.
So yeah, it should feel uncomfortable watching it now, but that shouldn't detract the movie at all.
But I get what you're saying, Dan.
It
No
pulls-
one in
it pulls
town
me
really
out of-
seems to care.
Nope, cool, a plane
Yeah.
crashed. Whatever. There's not nearly enough fire or chaos or anything.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's just gone.
I like how they referred to Air Force One as a tiny
A
airline.
small jet. A small jet. And
that's
I'm
it.
like, was Air Force One a smaller jet in...
And then you're like, oh, maybe they're just trying to be, candid. Like, hey, we need to talk over here, small jet. And so he brings them there. He's like, oh, the Air Force One. But then you get into town and the damage isn't all that great. Like with all the fire, it's very well kept into one area with...
The plane is
It doesn't look
neatly
like-
crashed in the middle of a street.
Correct. It doesn't look like it crashed in a building like it did in the animation that they had while they were watching it with the pod dropping out.
Yeah, and I swear I caught the change of planes, but I could be mistaken. I kind of want to go back and look at this for myself. But I swear when the plane was shown flying, it was one of the styles of planes that had both engines up by the rudder on the back of the plane. And then in the 3D model and in the street view, there were engines under the wings. So I feel like the effects didn't sync up, and I feel like they had different versions of the plane. Maybe the effects guys didn't know, but I swear that it was different.
Now I kind of want to go back and check.
Well, the airplane itself that was shown in the movie wasn't a 747 style plane that we are used to seeing as Air Force One. This was something that was pre that jumbo 747 model that we come to think of as Air Force One.
In real life, the plane that was Air Force One was smaller than what Air Force One is now. I did look at that after I heard that line.
Yeah, I was looking up pictures, and so is Andy. It looks like we can confirm in flight that the engines were back by the tail.
But below the window line, weird. Oh, they are different.
They are using different images. That's great. Anyway,
I
that's
don't
so
know
good.
why that bothers me so much, but it really did. Probably because I'm a stickler for attention to detail.
It feels like it's an oversight. How did somebody manage to bumble this one? Of all the things to bumble.
Just the overall plane design. Yeah. It's a silly thing to nitpick.
It's hard to say,
whatever.
but I'm guessing because airplanes are expensive, they probably did what they could. Like, we have this airplane flying, let's use this one. We can only get our hands on a gutted out one that's got engines here. Let's put it here.
Hey, maybe in the future the engines in a plane move.
Whoa!
Or maybe the crash. They had more inertia and airflow and they flew up by the wings for the crash after it hit down. That's optimistic. So on a related note to Air Force One having the President of the United States of America plastered across the side of it, making it an easy target, but I think the current one does as well. How about everything else that the President has that is also branded President of the United States of
Yeah, like his
America,
pod.
including his signet
His signet
ring?
ring, his pod, just like...
Yeah.
It's just like a stamp.
His bright red pod, which sends just him down into a dangerous area. You'd feel like he would at least have another pod there so he could have one escort, Secret Service escort, if something happens,
I can't grasp the utility of having an escape pod for one person on a plane with a crew of about...
Because he's the president, Dan. He's the most important
He
guy.
is the president, but you'd figure.
Gotta let him get down there.
But ejecting just the president into dangerous territory is not something you want to do.
Which I would stand by that, considering he did get himself taken right away. But if you look towards the end of the movie, he does hold his own pretty well with a machine gun.
Once he has a machine gun, sure, I'll give you that.
Well, he was kind of a jerk in that scene because he stops the
Yeah.
winch and is like, all right, Snake, you're just going to be bait for a second here while I draw out the Duke and shoot him. All right, now I'll help you back up.
Was always a jerk, apart from when he first gets rescued because, he's in a bad situation and just happy that anyone's there to get him out of this crap. But even at the end of the movie, he sits there all like
Being made up, all smug like.
a smug politician, where he just says, the lines that you think people want to hear, but with nothing behind them.
You mean he's Major Charles Emerson Winchester III?
I don't know what that means.
The MASH character.
Get out of here, Dan.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Snake Plissken asks him a weird question, which is, how'd you feel about the people who died for you? And he's like, oh, I'd like to meet them. I would sincerely like to meet anyone who sacrificed their life for this great country. Like, oof.
just a generic ass answer.
Yeah, that's... So he was kind of a jerk, and part at the end of the movie kind of wishes he died, but also it's probably Snake trying to gauge whether he gives him the real tape or lets him hang dry
That's
with
exactly
and
what
destroy
it
the
was.
Exactly,
existing
yeah.
tape.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. Nice little balance and check.
I just feel bad for humanity in general because he trashes the tape that has the secrets to fusion on it.
Yep.
There could have been so much energy independence going on, but he trashed it. I'm like, I get it why he did that, but the same token, we're all going to suffer because of that.
People back then didn't understand the difference between fusion and fission.
I don't think the president would have the only copy.
He snuck it out of the meetings, and that's why he was in air and stuff like that. He was trying to get away to pull these tapes out to show that these other world leaders were going to hoard this technology and not share it with everyone. I think that's what they were setting up.
He was going to give away the secrets of fusion to create peace. Exposing somebody and creating war is not creating peace.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, head tilts everywhere. That's just one of them. It doesn't make full sense.
Aha! Plot hole.
It was kind of weird for me seeing Donald Pleasance in this movie too, because I've only really grown up with him as an actor and with his character in Halloween as Dr. Loomis. So seeing him as the president and kind of like almost like a more leading of a role, because I know Loomis was very prevalent in the first Halloween movie, but then starts to kind of not be as noticeable in the sequels. But having him in as kind of like almost a leading role in this movie was kind of strange for me. It's just kind of like that background guy. He's the main guy now. So the first time I saw this is kind of like, oh, I appreciate him as Loomis, but as the president, I don't know how I feel about him.
I think you need to go back and watch some MASH.
Some MASH?
Mash.
Mismash? I think you need to go back and watch Escape from L.A.
Never.
It's got Steve Buscemi.
Don't care.
Which confused the shit out of me. I watched Escape from L.A. first, like I said, and Steve Buscemi's in that movie, right?
Oh.
That dude in this movie looks exactly like Steve Buscemi, but it's not. Who the hell is that random guy with the big bug eyes, dressed up like fucking Peter Pan running around?
I was going to say the laughing guy.
Yes, the laughing guy. I was so confused when I watched the movies in the wrong order, because I was like, oh, Steve Buscemi's in this one too. And then I came to realize that's not Steve Buscemi. Like, it shocked
I was
me.
thinking that was the Duke after they started talking about the Duke, because I was like, wait a minute. Because, yeah, you don't know who the guy is, and then he's in the back seat of the Duke's vehicle, and you're like, so
Yes.
is that the Duke? Because that's not who you'd expect to be the Duke.
Yes, I had the exact same thought, and then the Duke steps out from the front, and it's just like, oh,
That's
okay.
correct. I'll put that guy on my bad list. He played the part well. I don't want to say anything bad about the actor himself, but those roles, the sidekick who does a lot of laughing and obnoxious things, is one of my least favorite things in a movie.
Agreed. But he did take the tape.
Ever since Return of the Jedi with Jabba's little parrot.
Oh, yes. That's a good comparison.
That parrot has a name. I can't remember what his name is, though.
Yes, and it's also not a parrot, but it gets the idea across.
In this movie, the one thing that kept pulling me out of the whole situation that they kept trying to put you into was the control room where the Van Cleef character and all the people off the island were in their control center. Every time I saw those scenes, it felt like I was watching the movie Airplane.
You know, now that you're talking about it, I agree. Those scenes bothered me for a reason, and I couldn't figure it out. And now that you've said something,
Yeah. They just need those witty, and Leon's getting larger moments.
Jabba's pet was Salacious B. Crumb.
Ah, yes. How could we forget? Old Salacious.
Well, if you got the toy, his name is on the toy.
True, that's where 90% of unknown characters got their names.
It's a Kowakian monkey lizard.
Oh my god.
It's a parrot.
Worked as a jester for the court of crime lord Jabba.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about.
In this movie, I'm glad Snake gave up the whole, I'm talking like this because I'm cool. It's like, stop whispering. Stop
Enunciate!
pushing.
Enunciate, damn it!
Just talk like a
that only
normal
lasts for a
person.
while.
You're cool enough as it is. And after a certain point, he stopped talking like that. So I was like, good. You don't need to keep that
Do you
facade
think it would
up.
be a character choice that he wants to be a badass around any of the people who he sees as authority, and then
Not a
anyone
chance.
who may be able to be useful, he decides to play it nice and play
Not throw on the facade.
play things straight. 'Cause he was very open with information that you would normally think of people being a little bit cagey to give up. Like, I'm down here for the president. Have you seen him?
Tell me, have you seen him?
It's the first person he gets to talk to.
I think a majority of that happens to be just at the beginning of the film, he really only gives a shit about himself and wants those things out of his neck.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about those things quick?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
talk about those things in his neck.
Let's backpedal a little bit here and talk about the rest of the things that he gets in that area. And also, so we go with the
Sure.
president's tracer bangle. That thing is comically large, but for 80s tech with the amount of stuff that you'd have to stick in there, sure. And then, just like Leningrad, except for this one has a tracer, he pops open the one that Kurt Russell will be wearing, and it's got a button, and it's a 15-minute tracer. Cool. They got these...
Yeah, he's got some pretty
He's
low-tech
got
stuff.
precedent for comically large items
I loved it.
by
Yes, he
our
does.
standard.
I loved it.
Yet they can make the tiniest explosives to put in his neck.
Oh my
I
god.
love it. I love it.
Yes! Yes!
It's so dumb, it's good.
They won't explode your head. They're just big enough to burst your arteries. So is it like just an oversized Alka-Seltzer tab?
It's a small thing in a gel capsule that dissolves over time, and then after a certain point, a heat sensor inside it will trigger the explosion, which will cause a pinhead explosion. But still, from the tech I saw in that movie, the heat sensor and the explosion, I feel like that would have to be something larger than what they have.
Or something that would leave a mark when it's inserted into your neck?
I like that it's deactivated with x-rays. How convenient. How does this work?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just irradiate the entirety of your brainstem. That'll
But
be good.
like a good 80s movie, they inject them with those injection guns.
I love those injection guns.
Yes.
Even to this day. Those are so cool.
Those were some pretty nice injection guns.
Overall, I have the feeling I walked away from Escape from New York with the feeling that this was a really cool brainstorming session that they plotted out and made something coherent out of. And they got to maybe draft 2 or 3, and everyone thought it was cool, so they had to make it right away.
You gotta make it while you still got your funds.
What ended up happening is that it has all these rough edges that kind of make you feel that things are incomplete, or that ideas were thrown into the mix and then never fully developed by the time the movie's done. And like it was mentioned earlier, the people underground that come out and eat people just kind of happen to be there to push him forward at the beginning, and then gone. Situations pop up where suddenly now, oh, Central Park is where they drop all the food for the people on the island. All right, well, that only comes into play because they needed a place to get waved down. And also, why are you allowing yourselves to be waved down by a large mob of
Oh yeah,
prisoners.
that part kind of bothered me. Like,
Not a
oh,
smart idea.
oh, they're waving at us. They want us to land. Like, you're overly optimistic about this. You know what this place is, right?
But it's not like it's going in the wrong direction in my mind. I think that this movie was a great groundwork that needed more time to bake.
So if you want that version, you can read the novelization, which came out 3 years later.
Is that going to be grounds for a reboot?
Apparently in 2007, they were trying to do a reboot, and they attempted to get Gerard Butler as Snake Plissken. It wasn't received well.
Oh,
I can't imagine his face, but that doesn't sound like a name I would think of.
300
Oh.
300 King Leonidas.
Okay, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eh?
Didn't they reboot Escape from L.A.?
No.
That's a bad.
Maybe that's
movie.
what I
don't
saw
think
that was
so.
for. I did see that Robert Rodriguez was slated to direct a remake in 2017.
That's a great choice.
I would love to see that.
I can't think of a better director
enjoy-
for that.
I enjoy Rodriguez movies. I definitely
That's
watch it.
amazing.
Well, since I yelled reboot, let's dig into this. I think this is a great movie to reboot.
Absolutely.
It.
Yes.
Oh, it was Assault on Precinct 13 that got rebooted.
Like 7
Just
years
recently.
ago.
But
yeah.
I think this movie has all the
was
makings
thinking of.
of giving a reboot a really good groundwork and then allowing the people to play on top of it.
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
I could.
Yeah. Now, would we reboot it within the time period in which it was set? Because there hasn't been a lot of like movies set in the past recently. The recent.
There's
past.
a lot of like TV shows that do that these days, but I think one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of that is because you're asking people to take on an alternate reality history, and that's more difficult for people to take on than an alternate reality future.
future.
True.
Yep.
Man in the High Castle is good because you're almost going back 100 years now to go to World War II, comes out a different way. So you have a good wealth of time, but I think that if we do a 1990s alternate reality, it's going to be hard to pitch to people with money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that
I
makes
think
sense.
the hard thing too is technology's advanced so much since this movie was made. In terms of how you're going to keep the narrative going of how he has absolutely no idea how to find the president, and he has to rely on basically his instincts and talking to people and getting leads and stuff. I don't know, like what do you propose? Like there's a bubble over New York that doesn't allow for cell phone communication or GPS, things like that.
Rip the president out.
Yeah.
That's not it. Don't even make it about the president. I think that's kind
It's
of a
just instead of
cliche.
going in, he's already in the prison, and it's just him escaping.
You can replace the president with anything. The president is a MacGuffin. It's just an item to push the
Yeah,
story
it just
forward.
happened to be the president.
True,
He just happened
true.
to have the fusion things. That can be anything, really. Yeah.
So let's change it to
That's important.
Yeah, let's change it to something that this huge prison island, of course, has been there for 10, 30 years. Doesn't
Decades.
matter how long it's been there. There's a society there now, and they have their own scientists, and they've been working on something, and now they have some sort of technology that's going to threaten the people outside of the prison. So he has to go in and disrupt that, get that out, say that there's someone there that's their man on the inside that's feeding this information out. You know, it's something simple like that. I'm not going to write this movie right now.
But Joe, you said that's what they did.
Well, yeah, but we're already
That's what it feels like
we're,
they did.
we're in deep on this episode, and if I start brainstorming a whole movie for us, that's going to be like another 50 minutes here to 60
All right,
minutes.
all right. So let's think about this then. We got to get a duke. We got to get a duke again. Who'd be a good duke? A future duke.
Idris Elba.
Damn, that's yeah.
Like he wouldn't have to be a stereotypical black thug.
The
though.
Duke
No,
isn't a
I could see him being
stereotypical
smart.
black thug.
True.
It's up for interpretation. I like the idea of someone who has control of society, not so much a strong arm person.
More like
'Cause
a Lex Luthor.
Yeah, you want to appease this person. You want to work for this person.
So yeah.
I think it'd be good. I think the timing is right.
Yeah, I agree. The timing's right. The movie drastically needs to be redeemed, I think.
The all-important question here is, digitally de-aged Kurt Russell
No,
playing Snake Plissken again? Or
No, I think Kurt Russell
Carl
should,
Weathers.
Russell should have
Carl
some
Weathers.
kind of like.
It should be a sequel.
So sequel/reboot, like you're picturing Snake Plissken like taking his eye patch off and hanging it on the new guy and saying,
Well, no,
you're,
he's
you're
like.
Isn't that how? This is the same place that we go to every time we do a reboot. The original characters ends up passing the torch to a younger actor.
Yeah, because everybody's got that scene ingrained in their mind of that damn hat blowing across the floor. And
I'm
Indy
so
picking
glad
it
I've
up.
never seen that movie.
Oh no,
Indiana Jones?
No, Joe.
Oh.
Sooner or later, I'll probably watch it just to watch the mess.
Joe, do it. It's not nearly
do
as
it.
bad as
Just
they're
don't-
making it out to sound.
Don't do it.
It's a pretty
Don't do it,
fun.
Joe.
It's a pretty damn fun movie. There's a pretty bad scene right off the bat, but then the movie's actually pretty okay until you get to the monkeys
end.
and then the ending. Yes, the monkeys are kind of the signal of the downfall.
Aren't they always?
Yep.
God.
Especially in 12
Damn
Monkeys.
apes.
Because then you know the world's going to end.
I say maybe we have Kurt Russell be the Duke.
That would be a great
Ooh.
callback.
That'd be a great callback.
Yes.
I agree.
And then you have Kiefer Sutherland playing
Really?
Snake Plissken.
So now we're just shuffling people who are involved with Metal Gear.
Oh, okay.
So in the end, Dan doesn't like it, but how did the rest of you guys feel about it after watching?
I still enjoyed it. It's not my favorite John Carpenter movie. I don't even own it. I own my favorites. I have Halloween. I have They Live, all that good stuff. But I still enjoyed it. I thought it was a good, well-shot movie, like I said. Really well-done movie. It's definitely showing its age, and it definitely needs a facelift pretty badly. But I appreciate it for what it is.
What if we had Ryan Gosling be Snake
No,
Plissken?
he can be the laughing sidekick.
Yeah.
Kit Harington.
Kit Harington.
We could have Kit Harington would be okay. Actually, Kit Harington would fit pretty well. Other than that, we could have Gilbert Godfrey be Ernest Borgstein's character.
You had mentioned I can't remember his name, but I instantly saw him as Cabby, the boxing guy. Played Apollo Creed.
Oh, Carl Weathers.
Carl Weathers would be a great Cabby.
Actually, yes, he would be. Holy shit. I can picture his voice. I can picture his mannerisms. I'd love it. I would love it.
I'd be on board.
What if we had the guy who played Jaime Lannister to be Snake?
Sure.
I mean,
I'm literally looking at a website of
you're
actors
just
who could
looking
replace-
for someone who could look
Just
like
somebody
Kurt Russell
who's gonna
right
look
now.
badass with long hair and a...
Timothy
They've
Oliphant.
given him too many tries.
I agree. They keep trying to make Timothy
And he's
Oliphant a
fine. It's just everything...
Or
Wait.
Emily
Emily
Blunt.
Blunt.
Emily Blunt. She's too busy making movies that are quiet.
This website says that Oscar Isaac would be the person to play Snake. Out of 15 actors,
I mean,
Oscar Isaac is
Oh.
the top of the list.
Sure.
Maybe.
I guess. I don't know.
You might do all right.
Well, that's just like the internet's opinion, man.
Yep. Oh, I mean, the list came from Screen Rant.
How about
Oh.
how about the guy who played Peter McAllister?
Peter, the dad? You want him to be
Yeah, in
Snake?
Home Alone.
Are
Yes.
you sure? I was thinking Billy from Stranger Things.
Yeah, Billy would be pretty good actually.
Oh, yeah, Billy would be good.
Peter Dinklage.
Anyway.
John Hurd.
Jason Momoa.
Okay, I'm in.
I mean, could.
Daniel
You know,
Radcliffe.
I have to say, Jason Momoa is poised to be the replacement for Arnold Schwarzenegger if he wants to be. He could be the big, muscly action hero man that's in every movie, that shoots all the guns, kills all the bad guys, and says all the witty one-liners.
Absolutely.
If he wants it.
Yeah.
But he
yeah.
doesn't want to. He wants to be the lighthearted.
Yeah, Schwarzenegger is also lighthearted at times, depending on which movie you watch.
So you're saying Jason Momoa should be in the reboot of Twins?
And Peter Dink,
Or the reboot of Kindergarten
Peter
Cop?
Dinklage be
And it's
the Danny DeVito.
exactly Peter. That's exactly where I was going. Peter Dinklage, and Jason Momoa. Twins.
Oh, that'd be good.
And on that note, we have completed our time in the prison that was escaped from New York, rewound and rebooted. If you could like, comment, subscribe, that helps our YouTube algorithm. If you could share this episode or others with your friends, loved ones, or enemies who also love 80s or 90s movies, that would help us greatly. And you need to bring them back in 2 weeks when we rewind and reboot again!
Nice boots. Nice reboots.
Nice.